Hi everyone, welcome to this new episode of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. I'm going to be starting a new thing that I've been thinking about doing for a long time, which is keeping up some sort of log that talks about what's going on in my practice and the law and what I'm doing on a daily basis, and hopefully share the tips and information and thoughts I have with everybody, and hopefully get feedback and help as well. I was planning on doing this as a video program where I walk around, I videotape myself or edit, but creating video is so time consuming and production is so time consuming that I just thought I'd keep it to this record version only for now, unless I eventually get full-time staff to help me with video and other media. But I'm going to be talking about my practice and certain legal stuff I deal on a daily basis, marketing, the laws, and like today I have some interesting stuff about a meeting I had with CBP, some info I could help everyone, a meeting I had with NVC that could help everyone, questions about the situation with IOE cases, those cases last summer that were filed for naturalization and went into the digital registry system and have been having long delays, and just the types of cases we're getting right now at my office in light of the executive order and things people are thinking about and worrying about and what we can do about it, and just asking for your feedback as well. So we're going to do the intro part and get into it. Welcome to the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. I am the host, Attorney John Khosravi, and I practice U.S. immigration law exclusively. For more information about the program, please visit www.immigrationlawyerspodcast.com. Please note that this recording is informational only and does not constitute legal advice. Please consult with a licensed attorney for specific legal guidance that suits your case. Also, this recording is copyrighted and written permission is required for rebroadcasting. For more information about me, please visit www.jqklaw.com. So to start, one big problem I've been having, and I really want to get other people's feedback if they're having this as well, is regarding naturalization cases that were filed last summer in 2016, around August, June, and July. Instead of these cases being sent to the regular National Benefit Center where they're processed, these were switched up midway, and I actually had one case where I got a receipt number with the WAC at the beginning of the normal way, or NVC at the normal way, and then they sent a new receipt number that started with IOE, and that kind of confused me because there were different receipts numbers, and it changed completely, and it changed actually the receipt date the government had. So I called them up, they weren't aware, and eventually we got a biometrics appointment, so I thought it was okay. Now fast forward, 6-7 months, and the handful of cases I filed during that period have all still been pending. They received their biometrics, but they're pending. Now one of them eventually in December got an interview and the oath ceremony happened. It was an older lady in the Northwest. But I have like 4 other cases that are still pending. And when I call USCIS, they say we're still doing cases. Most recently, I called maybe a week or two ago. They said we're processing naturalization cases that were submitted in May 29th, in late May. So the cases where, June, July, and August, that time that I submitted are still after that date. However, I've had cases filed before that month and after that, like in October, November, that have already had their interview and had received their green cards as well. I mean, their naturalization citizenship as well. So it's been really troublesome. Now, I'm seeing on the list of other people having this issue too. I keep calling USCIS and they're just saying pretty much tough luck, wait on it. I talked with the district director in Los Angeles, and she said that, and this is in late January, she said by February we're going to process all these out, it's going to be done, and nothing's happened yet. And then, I was talking with other people on the AILA listserv, a new member division listserv, and one of them said that apparently USCIS is transferring these cases because they're testing out their new digital system because they want to do everything on iPads and stuff. So they took these cases, made them digital, and because training didn't exist on doing it digitally and all the problems that come with switching up a system, those particular cases have all been delayed. Now, I had a consultation with a gentleman who came in whose mother had filed during that time, and he and his brother, his mom, all filed naturalization at the same time during December. The mother got an interview appointment early February. She's going now, but the 2 brothers, the sons, are still having still waiting for their scheduled date. In my case, they're all waiting as well, and it's very, very troublesome, and it's been difficult for them because they want to travel or potentially be outside for a while, and they just get nervous because everyone else they know has already got their interview, and they're waiting on them. So they're like, what's going on? Some clients start worrying, did my lawyer do something wrong? And you know how much of a hassle that could be. Now, the big question is this related to like some sort of, issue with people being from the Middle East or Muslim, from the banned countries? All my clients that have this, coincidentally, and it happened to be Muslim. But I don't think it's a Muslim issue. I think it has to do with switching up the electronic system and the difficulties with the bureaucracy when you change a system. And I had a couple of them have their interviews, or I've heard they've had their interviews, and one of them even approved and moved forward. But they've all been Muslim for me that I've spoken with. I've had this problem. They're outside the 7 countries. So I've had it with Afghani people, Malaysian. So it goes outside those 7 countries. But I don't think it's a religious thing. I think it just happens to be. So if you have these kind of cases that are issue with the IOE case number, and they're pending this long, let me know. I want to create some sort of database or some sort of information so we could confront the USCIS and let them know what's going on. Our clients are waiting, and to see if there is some patterns that emerge. The pattern I've seen so far is just those during the summer that were submitted had this issue. So if you have that, let me know. My email is info@jqqlaw.com. I'll be happy to create some sort of internal listserv or communication system for us that have been dealing with this issue to see what we can do and how we can share information on our ability to get things going and help these clients out. Moving on from that issue, obviously the big news is President Donald Trump's executive orders and all the problems that have emerged with the executive orders and the consequences of them. Now, in addition to the so-called Muslim ban, or the Muslim majority country ban, the 6 of them now, not the 7. Now, today is, I think, March 11th. The new executive order is going to come into play in a few days. And it kind of readjusts how the old system, that the old executive order was. There's confusion about how it's going to be implemented, about how the waiver system is going to go in. And one confusion I had is when they talked about this the scope of who falls within the order, it has 3 elements: that you have to be outside the U.S., you have to have not had a visa on the original executive order date, not had a visa at the time of the new executive order date's effective date. But what happens if someone was in the U.S., so while the executive order effective date goes into effect? So if they leave the U.S., they're from one of those 6 countries, and they apply for a visa, do they not fall within the scope? So if someone, who was here on a tourist visa, on an F1 visa, then in April goes back to, Iran or Sudan or wherever, and they go and apply for a visa, this executive order wouldn't apply to them. And so it's kind of a weird thing. And a lot of people I've seen on the list are talking about it said, no, that's not the case. But based on the language, that seems like that would be the case. So if you do have someone on like a tourist visa that goes back home, then wants to do an L1 or an E2 or something like that, or gets married, or a fiancé visa, they shouldn't have to go through a waiver based on the wording of this of the executive order. Let me know, again, email me if you interpret it differently. Having said that, even if the waiver doesn't apply, they'll probably put you in administrative processing hell. And I have a case right now. Poor guys, this is a fiancé visa case. Went to administrative processing. 11 months later, we get the administrative processing okayed, but then President Trump issues a second executive order, so the guy has like a week to go and do a medical and get everything in time and hopefully get the visa time to come in, or have to wait the 90 days or request a waiver. And so I don't know what's going to happen with that. But with regards to the waiver, I don't even know how they're going to exactly process it, how difficult they're going to be about it. And frankly, waivers are so time consuming. It's for a practice, it's creating, it creates money for lawyers, essentially what it does to do this work, but it's not work I like to do because it's essentially a tax on these immigrants that they have to, they could do it themselves, but it's always better to hire an attorney to help you with the process, but it's a very time-consuming process. So if you had a client that hired you for consular processing, all of a sudden not only did they have to pay for consular processing, they're going to have to pay probably more than in legal fees because of the amount of time it takes to prepare a waiver. So that's super annoying, sad that people have to go through that. I myself, because I have a small practice and I do everything myself, waivers are so time consuming, I'm probably not going to be accepting any new clients for that. I'll probably be referring them out because I just can't handle the bandwidth of having to do waivers. But with my couple of cases that I do have that are pending the risk period, they're already my clients, so I'm going to work with them. But it's just an uncomfortable thing just to email them and say, oh, by the way, there's another 10 or 20 hours of work I have to do to prepare this waiver potentially. That's a bunch of money. Thank you. That's the call I don't want to make. I'd rather not make money like that where people have to take him just to help them do something that a week earlier would have been okay. But besides the waiver, there's all sorts of other consternation that's happening with regards to the executive order. I've been getting so many naturalization calls happening from people who've had, their citizenship for 20 years, even 30 years, and you're just like, okay, I want to do it now. So I think it's a big plus that people are finally getting the citizenship. There's no need to stay in LPR status when you don't need to be. There's so many potential little issues that could pop up that could create problems in admissibility. That it's just not worth it. But the other call I'm getting a lot, but actually more than naturalization, is pretty much every day, a person that's in unlawful status and is married to a U.S. citizen, may have been married for 10 years even, they finally want to move forward and go in status. But the first question I ask, and this is something I bring up on purpose, because majority of people actually who have been calling me, the first question I always ask is, for the person that entered unlawfully, I'm like, or is unlawful status, I say, how did you enter? Did you have a visa or did you just come unlawfully enter the country? And unfortunately, in most cases, it is unlawful. So then you potentially need a waiver. But in the era of Donald Trump, do you really want to send someone out, even with the waiver, to consular processing? Who knows what's going to happen? So it's very stressful guidance that you give. But so many of the times when people call me and they talk to other attorneys, they say, oh, the other attorney didn't even ask if I enter lawfully or not. And 1 out of like 5 or 7 of them, I'm getting people who did enter on a visa, just didn't know that if you're admitted in under 245 of the INA, you could adjust status in the U.S. and not have to leave. So if people are telling me, oh, this other lawyer told me I have to leave, or they're on DACA, I have to get advanced parole and re-enter parole. I'm like, no. Like, you have a passport, you have an entry stamp, you have a visa. Luckily, your parents got a visa for you when you came as a child. There's no need to leave, and that's education-wise, and that's one of the key reasons this podcast is here. Please be aware, if you do enter lawfully and you're married to a U.S. citizen, you could adjust status in the U.S. Oh, you don't have the other inadmissibility issues, and that's something popping up now. Some people lose their passports. That's what I'm dealing with a lot. It's people who don't have their passports anymore, but they did enter lawfully. So I want to start FOIAing CBP to see what kind of documentation I get to prove their lawful entry. But dealing with FOIA with CBP is such a mixed bag. You never know what you're going to get, when you're going to get it. I mean, I once had to FOIA CBP for the entry and exits of a person I was doing naturalization for, because they were doing it a lot and they had no idea and all that, what their entry exit states were. And so when I got the FOIA, and I got the response actually in like 2 months. This is during the lawsuit period where they're saying CBP takes forever. And I was so excited. I'm like, wow, CBP's working out. So I got it, and they redacted everything. It was like 30 pages of redactions. And I was like, why would they even send this to everyone and just say, we're not going to give it to you? And it's something on entries and exits. I was like, why would you redact something like that? It was a very basic case. Eventually, we got her citizenship and everything worked out, but it was just such a weird thing that we're going to have to deal with, because hopefully we could have some sort of proof of entry on some of these cases that lost their passport and work it out to show the lawful entry, and they can maybe get a passport from their consulate. Now, moving on, I had a couple of interesting meetings this week. One was the National Visa Center is having this public outreach program to talk about its new system it's rolling out. So everything could be uploaded, all the consular processing, civil documents, affidavit support could be uploaded online instead of mailing it in. So it looks to be a great system. It's a pilot program now, so we're starting with a limited number of embassies. But it solves the problem mailing stuff in, losing it. And, they kind of go through it. I'm not going to go over it too much right now, but a couple of points that were really interesting I wanted to mention. First and foremost, write this down. If, you email the NVC, at our email, NVC attorney at state.gov, I think it is, as an attorney, you don't get a response, wait 10 days, email again. If you don't get a response or they're sending you in circles, you could separately email send an email, and in the subject line, write attention PI supervisor. Attention, P as in Paul, I as in Ida, supervisor. And that'll go to supervisor that'll take charge of that case and look into it. And that's a neat little tip that could help you out in your system. in your cases. So they walked us through this online system, which is interesting. It's helpful for information. Right now they only have a 2 megabyte ceiling on the size of files uploaded for each part, which hopefully is not going to be a problem, because every time hopefully it gets increased, and they said it will, because when I scan stuff the file sizes are huge, so I don't know how I'm going to do that. But the tech aspect, if you're an older attorney, if you're probably listening to this podcast, you're tech savvy, but there's some attorneys that don't know the online systems and scanning all that. Definitely it's something to get into, because they're going to eventually phase out all the paper system. Now, some stats the NVC told me, and some tips from that is, in the last year, they've increased their staff at the National Visa Center. I think it's in New Hampshire where we send stuff. They've increased it by 40%. So they have like huge growth going on just because of the demand. They said they get 9,000 to 11,000 petitions weekly. So that's a lot of paperwork coming in. And one thing I said is, don't send your paperwork in pieces. Get everything together, send it all at once, because if it comes in pieces, that's going to be a problem connecting them, and it's going to cause unnecessary delays. And they said they need 4 things for a case to move forward from the NVC to the embassy. And so they don't adjudicate these, but they'll take notes and they'll give it to both the applicant or their attorney and to the embassy officers, consular officers. But I think they need fee payments, they need the DS-260 completed, they need all the civil documents, and they need the affidavit of support. So to move things forward, they need that. Pictures aren't necessary. I've always been mailing them in, but they're not necessary. You could just give them to the client to take with the consulate. So that's a good thing to know. Other people were doing the same, but I was hassling my clients to give me 2 passport photos and then take additional 2 at the embassy just to be safe. But that wasn't necessary. And now the important tip is they're getting 10,000 calls a day right now. 2 years ago was 4,100, but right now they're getting 10,000 calls a day. And they said that the NVC, people always call during business hours because they're trying to get it in, but NVC's open from 7 a.m. to 12 midnight, Monday through Friday. I don't remember what days, probably Monday to Friday, and that's Eastern time. So if you, like me, and I call, there's a busy signal or you're on hold for an hour, you could just call in the afternoon or later in the evening, or they say call on like Friday afternoons, because after the 5 o'clock when like it's busy, there's such a drop off that they actually take people from their phone operators and they move around to do other like physical stuff and moving around documents or whatever, because there's so few calls. The drop off is so great. So to save your time and all the hassle, don't call during peak hours, during business hours, Eastern time. Just wait for maybe 5:01 even and call, or call in the evening, or call Friday afternoon, because there's no one else calling. It's all the calls are going in at the same time. And their business hours are longer. So you can even call, 11 o'clock at night, Eastern time, and you'll still get somebody. You'll probably have to wait, and the person's probably bored just sitting there. They'd be happy to help you more. They don't have the pressure of all these calls and people stressing out. It's just more casual experience, that shift that comes in. So that was an important tip I got from that. The next meeting I had was with CBP and the LAX, and I think the LAX CBP includes like Las Vegas and the ports in Long Beach, all these kind of places, and the airports around here. And they're a great team. Really, I got to say, the top people at LAX CBP, with regards to the chief, the officers below them, all of them are like super officers, and especially in light of the executive orders, all the mess that's just put in front of them and the duties. I got to commend them. I can't say anything bad, only good stuff about how open they are when they meet with us. We have an AILA-LACPA meeting over there, LACPA's LA County Bar Association, and I recommend everyone who can come, sign up to come. Because the people are just great there and they communicate really well. And we sat and talked about what was going on. They couldn't talk about the executive order, lawsuits are happening, and all of that. But, they tell us the fact that they're losing officers on a weekly basis. Like right now, LAX, 2 officers are leaving. So either they're retiring, they're being transferred out. And, for every officer that needs to come in, they said, the head officer I was talking said that they go through 105 people to get one officer. And it can take 2 to 3 years to train that officer. And right now, with the stuff that's happening in San Diego, apparently there's some sort of Haitian migration crisis where they're working, they have to go there and process them and stuff. I don't work that area, so I'm not too familiar with it. But apparently every officer who does come on board goes straight to San Diego. And so wherever you're in Alaska, you get sent over there. So right now, in a busy port like LAX, which has tourist numbers just growing every year, tons of Chinese visitors, tourists coming to LA, Los Angeles. Imagine they have less officers, more people coming in, and more rules that they have to enforce. So this is a recipe for disaster. Now, my worry is that they want to enforce these laws, the executive orders, and all the admissibility stuff, and they don't have enough people. News came out that they're potentially, or they are lowering the standard with regards to the polygraph test, which is really hard, and all this other stuff. And so, a CBP officer has to be a very highly trained officer because admissibility issues are so complex. I know I'm an immigration attorney practicing for all these years. I still have to study this stuff all the time, or I forget it. And imagine, we're attorneys, we have to pass the LSAT and go through law school. These officers aren't necessarily, grad students in law, but they're very intelligent people, but they have to work tons to learn that and the experience that comes into it. And so, imagine the top people are leaving for, retirement or for whatever reason. It takes forever to get these people trained to do what they're doing. Not only is it the legal training, but there's police training and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very stressful job to have. Morale has to be down. When you have people, booing you at the airport and saying all this negative stuff when you're just, they didn't write the executive order, it was given to them. So I have to really give them, some due. I don't want to be bashing them, and we have to have some understanding of what they go through. Because imagine, you're a trained officer in the law and a police officer, essentially, because you have police training, and all your job is you have a jumbo jet that comes down, and you have 4,000 people. And you got to go through 4,000 people really quickly because there's going to be another 4,000 coming pretty soon. And you got to look at all their passports and stamp on it. Now, we're immigration attorneys. We have consultations with clients. And foreign clients, they can be really nice and they can be super annoying. They could understand English and speak English really well, or they can't speak a dime of English. And so you're going through thousands of people every day, looking at passport stamping them, having to judge them, know the law, and just it's kind of mundane too, constantly next one, and it's never ending. So it's a weird position to be in. It's very stressful, and when you have all of a sudden the issues with the executive order, not enough people to do it. Not an executive order when I came out the first one on a Friday, and the laws weren't clear. All of a sudden you have to be executive order came down where the top legal minds can't make heads or tails of it because it doesn't make any sense of how badly it was written. How is some CBP officers going to research it now? There are some cases where, obviously the officers had some things going on. They didn't deal with the right, and in any form, any group, there's going to be bad apples. But it's just generally a bad situation. And I was thinking, well, what can we do? We can hire more people. That doesn't make sense because it's going to take forever for that to actually kick in. We have to have understanding towards what they're doing. But I think it has to be the laws. We can't have so much crazy laws that come in that requires them to do so much work. There has to be some leniency that focuses on security, but realistic security. And that goes into a difficult area to talk about or even think about. Because as one of the officers said, if you're the officer that lets one of these bad people come in, your officer badge number stamp is in that that under I-94 that you're the one who did that, and that that stays with you. So it's just one of these situations. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it really puts them in a difficult grind over there. But I don't know how to deal with that other than just thinking about what the laws are. The government's really good at constantly making new laws and making every sort of behavior illegal. What can we do to lessen that burden? But two notes that they mention. One is there's been controversy about people who have entered after, for example, going through rigorous background checks, through UN HCR, or the refugee program. And the officer mentioned that there are heavy background checks that happen, and those who have clients to go through administrative processing know. But between the time a visa is issued and between the time a person actually enters the U.S., maybe months. And between that time, there's no background checks that happen. So what happens is a person gets a background check, waits a couple of months for whatever reason, then comes to the U.S. When they do enter the U.S., there might be a hit on their name. Now, it could be that they have the same name as a lot of other people that could create problems, as we all know. Or another thing is their computer systems are all connected with the different policing systems nationally or internationally, Interpol and everybody. And so one weird thing, and the technology has gotten really good, but at the same time it's gotten really bad, is their quantity of information has gone insanely high. So if your fingerprints show up in some sort of police database internationally, that's immediately going to flag you and you're going to secondary. And as I said earlier, they don't have enough people in secondary to process all these things, so there's immediate 7-hour delay, which is beyond the issue of just, profiling or something like that. Now, the issue of them looking at your phones and password, that's a mess, and it's unfortunate. That's something you have to, on a civil liberties wise, you have to deal with. But it becomes a problem because the quality of the information based on fingerprints isn't there. So they'll get a hit that says these fingerprints exist somewhere in some database police-wise. So it could have been you're a witness to a crime. It could have been you went to some guy's house and had some coffee, left, and then something happened to that guy. Police came over and saw your fingerprints on the cup, and you go to a database all of a sudden, which is, you're totally legit. But they don't know that because their system just says fingerprints and doesn't go further than that. And so they have to make calls and spend hours trying to figure out should I let this person in or not. Obviously, like the vast majority of people are okay because eventually all these people are coming in and nothing's happening that's bad. But is that one bad apple and that fear of like one bad thing happening? Is it overblown? Probably, but at the end of the day, that's their job to be strict on these things. So that creates a lot of problems between those timetables of when the person gets the visa and enters. And they've said there are times when a person on the plane, all of a sudden, the computer system says, oh, don't let this person in. And the people on the plane coming in, that's when they figure it out. So the technology has gone good, but it's gone bad at the same time. Also, there's one issue. Sometimes airlines are afraid to board some people because, for example, green cards expired. And they don't want to board somebody because, if the airline lets them board and come to the U.S., they could be fined for doing that. And when you have that problem, the airlines have a go-to person when there's a boarding issue that they can call that connects with U.S. border authorities that could okay someone and give them the okay so they don't get fined. So if you have, and this is really important, write this name down and give it to your clients that are coming from overseas if they have this problem. When they're checking in and getting their ticket and they're not letting you get the ticket or board or whatever, ask the carrier and the representative there to call the Regional Carrier Liaison Program. Regional Carrier Liaison Program. And that, hopefully, they'll be aware of what it is. If they're not, ask them to talk to a supervisor. But that's a go-to person liaison that they could talk to and discuss the issue and try to clear it up so the person could board the plane. So that's a really cool thing to know. Another is if someone comes in, this happens every once in a while, where their I-94 has an error as to whatever reason, and it's clearly an error. I used to think too, like you have to go to the port where they entered and work with the CBP or the Deferred Inspection Office that's associated with that port. But apparently you could go anywhere. So someone enters New York and travels to LA, they could go to deferred inspection to LA. Luckily, LAX has a new online email, like an email system to fix I-94s, which is really cool. I'm not sure if other jurisdictions are doing that, but you could go anywhere. So that's something to use. Always be careful going to deferred inspection. You never know what's going to happen. I was at a CBP meeting, and one person told me that another attorney had a client who was a marriage case. Came on the visa waiver program, overstayed, married a U.S. citizen, needed a copy of their I-94 or something like that. So they had actually filed, even I can't remember exactly, but they went to CBP and they're like, oh, you're on, I think they haven't filed because they would have probably got to stay. But like, oh, your visa waiver or extension, even though you're married to a U.S. citizen, tough luck. They just got him right there, put him on a plane and deported him. That's a traumatic experience. So be careful sending people to deferred inspection if you don't know it's a clean case. So I'm going to be wrapping this up because I'm trying not to hit longer than 30 minutes on these. Apparently for podcasts, shouldn't go that long, but more in reality, I'm losing my voice. It's like Saturday night right now. I've been talking all day. One quick note that's unrelated to all this stuff with technology is I've been using the Venmo app. V as in Victor, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, M as in Mary, O as in Ocean, Venmo. And it's an app that allows transfers from checking accounts to checking accounts. I think they do credit cards too where there's a fee, but the checking account to checking account is no fee. So I have clients who are, in other states or whatever, instead of having to mail me checks and waiting for that to process and all that, if they also have the Venmo app, it really quickly could send from their app to my app, and then I transfer it to my own checking account really fast. It's a really good system, no fee, so it's something to use, and I think the more we use it, the easier, more people know it, so the chances, I've like people want to do sometimes credit cards and stuff, and if it's possible, I just say, do the Venmo app, and it saves me that percentages that you have to pay on the credit card fee. So that's something great to use. I guess that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for listening. I really enjoy this, and every 4 or 5 days I'm getting someone contacting me about the podcast, and it's really exciting. I'm really happy to see y'all listening. It's just a pleasure, and keep up communication, please. I'd like to be a central hub for any data and information that comes in, so then I can spread it out once I research it and get more information. And if I could do that, to share the info to all the practitioners, to make life easier, and to just take it to the next level of how good our practices are, I would love to do that. So email me. My email is info@jqqlaw.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, follow, subscribe, leave a comment. If you're listening through iTunes, leave a review and comment. And also remember, I do have a separate listserv called the Immigration Lawyers Listserv, which is actually 7 sub-listservs that we can talk about if you have a certain regional-based issues. So if you have Iranian clients, we have a listserv just for immigration attorneys deal with Iranian cases, so that you could ask questions about that. There's a Latin American one, there's a Europe and Canada, there's Southeast Asia and Oceania. There's East Asia, so is South Asia. So, especially, India's got a huge population of immigrants. So if you have issues with Indian cases, how to get this birth certificate, that, we have a lot of members in each group that are focused on that as well, and they can give you really good information. It's the Immigration Lawyers Listserv. You could just email me at info@jqqlaw.com with your email address and some sort of proof that you're an attorney, because this is an attorneys-only group. And all the groups are almost all immigration attorneys, but I add some criminal attorneys and OFAC attorneys in some of the groups as well, so that there's other opinions and ideas that you can get if you're asking immigration issues or foreign asset controls issues. You can have that. So it's a really neat thing, and it's helped a lot of people. It's helped me, and it's a good way to share information. And it's free to join, no membership cost. That's Immigration Lawyers Listserv. Thank you so much for listening. I wish you all the best, and hopefully I could do this again next week, and eventually I could do a daily vlog on video. It'd be really cool if I could find the time to do something like that. But for now, this is it. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time. Have a good one.